the infrastructure that we have. We kind of see this as going to be the thing that evolved over the last 2 or 3 years, but we think following COVID, well, the government won't have any money, so luckily they've got builders and developers to take it off. And we think it will be a significant impact on the way that business is going to be done all over the United Kingdom, really. If I could have the next slide. So a little bit about us. We're basically a development construction company. So we have a strategic planning division, and we have 48 sites over Kent currently. And we've got on those sites in planning 22,500 houses and about 4 million square feet of commercial space. Can I have the next slide? Defined by what we deliver. So that building there, ACQ, that was one of the biggest office buildings built over the last decade. Really proud of it. Really happy I don't own it anymore. I'd like to thank Folkestone and Hive for purchasing that. But the building, I think, will still continue to be a success. I do believe they've got people interested in taking the last remaining space now. I do think there will be a place for offices going forwards, but I think that you'll probably have more companies having less space. If I can have the next slide. So just talking about a little bit about what we've done. So we've delivered 2 million square feet of commercial space. So 6,000 people work in buildings that we've constructed. The annual economic output from the construction each year is £200 million. And the next slide. So this is where we're coming to where I think it's going to change. Development, because of what happened in the 80s and 90s when so much got built with so little infrastructure delivered, what we've come up against as developers, and I'm sure that other people have who are listening in, is how difficult it is now to get planning. Now, the reason for that is people basically got hundreds of thousands of houses delivered with very little infrastructure. We think from now on, the big change is going to be how much infrastructure has to come with housing developments. My guess is that you're probably talking about £20,000 a house more it's going to cost in the coming decade. Now, to put that into context, on a normal acre of land, you'd expect to get between 12 and 16 houses. So you're talking about, if that's £20,000, that being an absolute fortune that has to come off the land value. So I think that what I would suggest is really important going forwards is that landowners, developers, builders need to start talking really early about what is going to be expected of them, what they're going to have to deliver. Because if they don't, then people are going to get nasty surprises, and you'll find that schemes don't come forwards. So I think it's absolutely crucial that there's collaboration between councils, between landowners, between developers. The other way of doing it is to do what Folkestone and Hive did, which is to buy their own land and then grant themselves planning, which makes them, in my book, one of the best developers ever. The next thing to talk about is what we've been doing as a company. So I think that the two things that we're most proud of probably coming forwards in terms of the community infrastructure the company delivers is firstly the Pilgrims Hospice, which has just started on site now. For us, that's a £9 million hospice. We're delivering that with Pentland Homes and the Tory Foundation, and that is completely paid for privately, basically out of the Thannington development. It's on top of the 106. And what that will do is provide a state-of-the-art hospice facility for the people of East Kent. It will also enable them to be able to become income generating and to become self-sufficient financially in perpetuity. So we think that's really, really important in terms of the piece of community infrastructure. And again, it helped that scheme get through and helped that scheme be accepted by the people of Canterbury. The next thing that we're really proud of, and we've just handed over the keys, is Herne Bay Sports Hub. Now that's another pretty phenomenal bit of kit that's a community's gained. It's basically a 15-acre sporting super hub. Its cost in total, if you put all the utilities, infrastructure, roads, and the actual cost of the hub, it's cost around circa £10 million. It was supposed to cost 7, but unfortunately my QS and myself got it wrong. So we ended up putting another £3 million of our own money into it outside of the 106. we are actually legally obligated only to put £2.5 million in, and we ended up having to put £5.5 million. So the first thing I did after I mucked that up was to buy a calculator. But we are really, really proud of what we delivered there. And we think, again, that is going to prove massive to the future and regeneration of Herne Bay as it goes forwards. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at putting in for planning very shortly in March, we think this year, and that's going to be following alongside the Swell local plan, is going to be a scheme called Hessle Park, which is another one, Junction 5A. So that basically is the idea of building the first privately funded motorway junction to be built in Britain. What that also does, it then provides a relief road which goes over the train line between Sittingbourne and London, and it then links up to a £48 million bridge that was built in 2008 over the Swale Estuary, and it completes the Northern Relief Road and the Southern Relief Road. That piece of infrastructure will help save the lungs and save the lives of around 50 to 60 people a year, because it will take thousands of lorries out of the centre of Sittingbourne. Obviously, it needs some housing to pay for it, because that infrastructure, together with all the other infrastructure associated with this project, come in at nearly £400 million. And that basically means that on a scheme of 9,250 houses, you're looking at each house giving over about 40,000 quid. And that shows you what we think it's going to take to get housing and to be accepted in what we see as the emerging planning regime. That scheme also will help provide 8,000 jobs. It doubles the size of Kent Science Park. Kent Science Park's got 2,500 people working at the moment, and it's filling up fast. It'll be expected to have 4,000 people there probably within the next couple of years. So what the scheme basically does, provides 3 primary schools, 1 secondary school. It's got a primary care trust centre. It also has got obviously £175 million motorway junction and relief road. So if we turn it over, and actually the next slide, please, that'd be great. So what we got on the M2, which is basically down where the Science Park is, where Highstead is marked on the plan, is something called a Trumpet Junction. I didn't know they had musical instruments as motorway junctions, but now I do. And that basically creates another junction off for Sittingbourne. Sittingbourne happens to be the only town in Kent only has 1 junction for it. So if you look at Faversham, it has 2. Maidstone's got 4. Ashford's got a similar number. So Sittingbourne, actually to supply Sheerness, the island of Sheerness, and Sittingbourne only has 1. Now what that means is pre-COVID, you basically were queuing from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get off that road when it was coastward bound. You also had an average time to get from Eurolink, which is the largest industrial estate in Sittingbourne, where you've got, I think it's 5 million square feet and several thousand people working. It used to take a peak times 42 minutes to drive onto the M2 from Sittingbourne. That journey on this road will come down to about 6 minutes. So the improvement in productivity, the reduction in brake dust, and the reduction in diesel particulates being put into the air is absolutely enormous. And we think it's a game-changing piece of infrastructure. And it's something that we're going to be pursuing as positively as we can do. We did our first webinar on it on Tuesday, and we're going to be looking to do several more webinars on this as we go through the planning process. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. The next scheme that we're looking at moving forwards with, and this, you'll hear the same type of theme throughout, is how much money infrastructure is costing. So this scheme is called Binbury Park, and it's next to basically Detling Showground and the Aerodrome Business Park. Business Park employs over 1,000 people. It has a junction, which means that you have to cross dual carriageway to get into it. You also have to cross a dual carriageway to get in to the Detling Showground. Now, what that means is that this is one of the most dangerous sections of road in Kent. There have been circa 400 accidents on this section of road over the last 4 years, and we've had, I think, 3 fatalities on this road. So what we do is we create a grade separated junction which enables you to access the Aerodrome Business Park and Detling Showground by going underneath and an underpass underneath basically the A249. Now that basically will create nationally significant safety betterment. And we hope that is enough to get over the designation within the AONB that this area has. The scheme basically contributes about £45 million of infrastructure. It also does 40% affordable housing. So you'll have 1,700 homes. You'll have something like 900 of them will be basically private, and the rest will be affordable housing. You also have 50 self-built plots, 1,500 jobs that the commercial create, and you've also got a sports hub for Maidstone Rugby Club, which again will enable that club to grow and to financially secure its future, but by becoming financially self-sufficient. But the main thing is we also create sound attenuation for the village of Detling, which should help with any sound pollution that they suffer from currently from the A249. And finally, the scheme creates extra capacity at Junction 7 by adding some arms on, so widening basically that junction that goes over the M20. And that will help again alleviate traffic considerations and air quality issues in that area. Can I have the next slide, please? Finally, we're on Merton Park. So this is a scheme that we put forward in the Canterbury Call for Sites. I heard it being called a colossal waste of money at the beginning of the week, which was quite interesting. But essentially what it actually means is that we provide about 20 acres of serviced land for free and a shell worth about £150 million. And that basically delivers a shell for a super hospital. And that hospital is about 600,000 square feet. That hospital will have a helipad, it will have 800 car parking spaces, and that basically is paid for by this development. So it's the first time that this has been done. The building's been fitted out by the NHS. Now the reason for that is I know how to build buildings, but I haven't got a clue how to fit out a hospital. And if I did do it, I'd probably be giving myself an early grave. So I'm going to allow the experts to do that, and I'm sure there's many on this call. And what we're going to do is concentrate on what we can do. So that will involve, if this scheme's given planning and the CCG confirm that it's the preferred option, it would mean that we would, through Homes England loan, we would basically build the hospital, the road and the infrastructure before any of the housing. We would then basically pay back that loan through land sales, and we would end up delivering a new primary school, a new rugby club for Canterbury Rugby Club, a new hospital, and basically 2,000 houses in an area that is the closest area to the city centre. So in terms of sustainability, in terms of not needing cars, we think it will be a really strong contender for that site, and it's a scheme that we're really excited about the opportunity to deliver. So hopefully you'll get the way we see it coming down the road is you are talking about many thousands of pounds having to come out of land value, and you're talking about essentially landowners having to accept that they are going to have to do significant infrastructure if they want these schemes to be enabled to come forward. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we see, is that the days of people being able to build with no infrastructure, we think they're over. And I don't think that's a negative, although I do think it's going to take quite a few people to readjust what they think that they're going to be making out of things. I also think that there are many positives that will come out of this, and it will enable perhaps developers not to be seen in the light that we sometimes are. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you for that, Mark. And as you say, hopefully that actually readdresses things a little bit, and developers often get a bit of a raw deal and bad press. So actually, with some of those numbers mentioned there, that's a huge amount of investment with huge community gains. So thank you for sharing that with us this morning. Mark, are you happy to take questions?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Fabulous. Has anyone got a question for Mark? Don't be shy.
Oh, there's a question from somebody, Mark, actually. It says, as a dual resident, can you tell us any more about your involvement or plans at Hessle Park? I'm just reading these without viewing them first, Mark, so I don't know what they're going to say. I'll read them before I ask you.
No, don't worry. The idea between Hessle Park basically is we are hoping to get planning on Betshanger Grove, which is across the road, which is where the industrial estate had a permission. We are then going to basically utilise income from that, and we're intending to spend a couple of £1 million on the park. So what that is going to mean is we're looking at providing potentially a 50-metre pool, a Lido next to it. It's already got a water feature, so our intention is to make it so people can use it. Our other intention is to finish it. So we've been doing a load of work on it at the moment, which is basically taking it apart to see if it's been built correctly. And we then will be putting it back together. That will contain basically yoga studio, Pilates studio, a place for exercise. It's going to contain bike shop. It's going to contain the Kent Heritage Mining Museum. It's going to contain some education space, and it's going to contain some conference facility and facilities that can be used for parties, weddings, anything like that. Our intention going forwards would be to look at an indoor play centre. We also want to be looking at maybe a street food a street food scene. So essentially, we're looking at being able to provide kind of artisan products, artisan sales facilities, so that people have an opportunity to own their own business and would help drive footfall to the overall park. The other thing we're looking at doing is spending some more money on the fitness facility, spending some more money on the lake, so the lake can be used for wild lake swimming, and those are the things that we're going to be looking to do with it.
Okay, lovely, thanks. There's a couple more questions. As a small family-run business kitchen company, how can we get involved in providing quotes and designs for your projects?
Just send us an email. Yeah, no problem at all. We've
on
got
your website, yeah, okay.
Email facility on our website, and we're always looking to meet new subcontractors, so no problem at all.
Okay, it's great to see Quinn looking at sustainability alongside of placemaking and infrastructure. Do you find the planning departments more engaged and are responsive as a result?
Yes, of course I do. I think that sustainability, I think, you know, on the scheme that we're doing at Hessle Park, what we're looking at is using centralised battery storage. So what that will mean is that over a year, you won't need any electricity off the grid. It'll basically become self-sufficient. And that's where I think it's going to go. What you'll have is PV feeds that electricity, that centralised battery hub during the day. And then in the evening, if you need to top it up, well, at the moment, the grid will actually pay you to help regulate its current. So essentially, I think that that's the way that we'll be looking to go with it. I also think houses going towards passive house level, that's definitely going to be something that we see happening. And again, I think all of these things are positive for helping to maintain our beautiful country and beautiful Kent and beautiful world. Yeah.
Brian Horton's saying housing starts are running at 40 to 50% or pre-COVID-19 levels. What do we need from the government to raise confidence to increase activity on new homes?
I think if it was me, and I thank you for this, Brian, because it means I can rant. I think that the government's got to allow SIPs to buy new build houses. At the moment, self-invested pension schemes can't. They can only buy offices or shops, which, no offence, I don't think many people want to buy at the moment until they know what's going to happen to them. So I think that allowing, maybe for a reduced period, we think that would release about 18 billion into the economy. And what they say is that every quid spent in construction is worth 7 quid. Because builders don't just use builders or subcontractors, they use accountants, lawyers, graphic designers, public relations. So the number of jobs that spin off from companies like Jenner's, companies like Kia, companies like ourselves is pretty enormous, really. And I think that sometimes the government doesn't tend to see it, but I would love to see them allow SIPs to purchase property.
Maybe a lobby into government then, Mark, perhaps.
Don't you worry.
Guy was on a couple of, and Guy speaking after you, he was on a couple of times ago at the KCFG breakfast talking about Newtown Works. Can you update us on the progress there?
Yeah, we're in detailed due diligence with 3 parties at the moment. We're hoping that prior to Christmas, we'll basically be going into legals with a view to us starting on that next year. And we are looking at a number of things. We've got a couple of parties out of them who want to deliver with us the current scheme. And then we've got one party who would like to turn it into all film studios. So instead of 4, there'd be 8 film studios. So really exciting for us. And in COVID, probably the only thing that did well was Netflix and Apple. So yeah, bodes well, hopefully.
That's great news. I live near Ashford. Great news. So Emma's got a question.
Mark, a quick question that's come in for you, a very generic question really about you as a person more than anything really. Don't worry, it's safe. It just basically, what drives you in business and what gets you, keeps you getting out of bed every morning?
I love working with the people that I work with. I love the team. I think I'm really lucky to work with a really good team, really strong team. I mean, I'm a tiny little cog in this business, and thankfully so, because I don't think we'd be very successful if it was down to me. And I also think that drives me, I love seeing nice buildings. I love building things that I'm proud of. You know, when I go over to Herne Bay and I drive up it, I think it looks amazing. And when I see how happy people are and people laughing and joking, playing sport, you know, when I look at Hemel, another one that we did, which is a refurbishment of a listed building, I love doing things like that. So yeah, I get a kick out of buildings. Some people love, I don't know, selling cars or making cars work. I love seeing buildings go up. So yeah, that's what drives me.
I think for us as well, our passion for the industry drives us as well. You know, we absolutely love days like today. I mean, we would love it if everybody was all together. But
We've been buzzing since 5 a.m, haven't we?
Yeah.
All that coffee.
Yes.
We have coffee, yes. Mr. Sandal brought it in for us, no less.
I missed the Prosecco that we had last year. That's maybe later on.
We will be back in June, and there'll be plenty of Prosecco on the Jenna stand, I can assure you.
Prosecco in our networking lounge at 12 o'clock, Mark.
But you have to bring your own.
I will.
Hello. Could I just ask a question of Mark?
Yes, of course, Trevor.
Morning, Mark. It's Trevor here. Good morning to you. How will the sort of skills shortage in the construction industry impact on your plans and costings, if at all?
I think there's going to be a couple of impacts. I think cost, yes, but what happens with cost then? You get a kind of inflection point when basically people start earning more money, and so they want to train to do that. I do think the apprenticeship levy, I don't think has been very successful. I think the government should use more direct taxation relief. So basically, if you take on someone, then you get maybe 150% tax relief. Something like that would mean that people like us would take a risk more. Because if I take somebody on and I put a director with them, that director's probably 15% less efficient. And if that director's paid a lot of money, then that means that costs an enormous amount of money. So I do think the government probably needs to stop making us go pay into a levy scheme that no one is using, because there's hundreds of millions of unspent pounds in that levy, billions now. I think that the great thing would be to help young people by saying, look, if you're a business owner and you're going to take a risk to train that person to make them into the person that you need to employ, then there is a tax benefit for that risk that you're taking. And I think that is what we would like to see government do.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Trevor, for that question. Has anyone else got any other questions? Oh, you might be let off lightly there.
Better run.
How have you found? I know you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait, Mark, because guys not here yet. How have you found lockdown, Mark? How has it affected you personally and you in your business?
I think personally, there's been some really good positives. At the start, we definitely drank too much. Now that kind of, the guilt's come in and we're behaving ourselves. I think I also spent a lot more time with my family, which I've really liked. My wife, surprisingly, spending more time with her is happier. So I think there's some really good positives. So I think the relationship with my family and my kids is one of the big positives. I think the negatives are, it's pretty scary at the moment. At the moment we're really busy, but what do I think? I'm worried about what cliff is going to be there next year, but I'm hoping I'm wrong. But you know, I'm like everyone else. There's an immense amount of uncertainty. Are we going to get locked down again? Are they going to stop the economy again? So you know, there's an immense amount of anxiety about it, and all we're trying to do is manage our business so that we can get through what's going to get thrown at us, really.
Okay, and it's
He keeps muting us.
Probably best.
Probably best.
Ella, I've got another one. I've got another one, I'm afraid.
Another one. Go on then, Trevor, as it's you.
and then Lewis. Yeah,
Hello,
go on.
Mark again. Yeah, you do so much, these fantastically ambitious schemes, Mark, and yet you do get a lot of negative publicity. The people don't like you very much. They think you're concrete over the whole of Kent. I mean, are you got a very thick skin, or how do you cope with all of this?
I look at, you balance it up. I mean, you know, those are people that live in houses. I mean, my favourite one, I'll tell you a little story. We got a development, I won't tell you where it is because they'll know what I'm talking about. We got a development where we took 800 lorries out of a village, okay? And you would have thought that I'd basically asked to build a nuclear power station there, okay? What then happened is that those 100 houses that paid to move that company out, and you basically regenerated that village. I remember the shop owner writing a letter of objection to the scheme. When it had finished, I went in to buy a paper and he said, I can't believe my shop. I looked at his extension, he'd extended the shop by 30%. And he just said, it's been amazing. Local pubs still open, that was on the verge of shutting down. But my favourite bit is that they might now extend the village a little bit more. And the people who live in my house, the houses that I got planning for, they're now set up an objection group to stop any more housing. And I think that sums up a lot in this country. People look at me and they want to criticise me, but they want their sons and daughters to live in a house. They want roads that basically mean they don't have to queue. They want sports facilities, but they want someone to pay for it. So when I look at it, I look at it quite logically and say to myself, is what I'm doing really bad? When all these people, on one hand, tell me that they want something, and on the other hand, they don't want anyone to do it. So yeah, I sleep well at night. I don't have a problem with it. You know, I'm proud of what our company does. We spend hundreds of thousands of pounds each year helping charities and helping sports clubs and doing things that we feel make a difference in the community. And I know companies like Jenner's do as well. You know, they do an immense amount for the community. And I think that, you know, I'm proud of what we do. And, you know, we do as a group have to stand up for what we do, because people want to criticise us, but then they want their son and daughter to have a house. So, you know, you level it for me. Do you think that's hypocrisy? I do.
In the same village they live in as well, Mark.
Unbelievable.
Where it is.
Yeah. They've set up an opposition group when if they'd done that to them, they wouldn't have a house to live in.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a question from Lewis from Mid-Kent College. Do you use apprenticeships to either bring in new staff or upskill current staff? And do you get the training you require for training providers?
Yeah, we do run an apprenticeship scheme, but we tend to use training within our subcontractors. And if we are bringing somebody in to head office, then we would normally provide that training. But happy to have a conversation with Mid-Kent College, especially in relation to Binbury. I think we've been in discussion with them about setting up an apprenticeship centre on that site.
Yeah, cool.
So really keen for them to get in contact.
Any more questions?
No.
Are we dare going to escape without mentioning the B word, Mark, and Brexit and what effect that might have? Sorry to do that to you.
No, I think we'll just get on with it. I think when you look at it, I think the second biggest purchaser of German cars in the world is China at 40,000. Last year we bought 400,000 German cars. So I kind of think that there's a lot of nonsense being said at the moment. I'm sure it'll get worked out. And I think in these times we all need to help each other a bit. You know, and that's what I'd like to see countries do: get together, help each other out, and stop trying to, you know, have a contest.
Yeah. I think for us in Kent, although it affects us with respect to where we are, if we're getting on with our work and doing what we do anyway, we'll crack on with it. It doesn't matter what government's in, we just get on with what we're doing.
Exactly.
I think Ella's just found something actually, who sent in our little group. If you ain't willing to work for it, then don't be complaining about it. So.
Yeah, totally.